Hi all. Hi Rohi. I think you can hear me.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Sorry for this again. Some problem with my Zoom. Let me just share my
No issues.
screen. Sharing now. Who else is here? Let me quickly check. Okay, so I see Isha. Hi Isha. I see Rahul. Maybe we'll start because we have a 40-minute limit, right? So it's already 8:37. So we need to finish by 40 minutes. We have some specific things to cover today. So let's get started. I hope you all can see my screen as well. So what we're going to do today, quickly, let me quickly tell you. What we're going to do today is otherwise known as looping structure. So what we're going to do is that, let's say this is my block of code and I need to run this code for more than one number of time. Okay, in this case, what I can do is that I can do two things. I can put this into a function. Okay, we are going to look into functions at a later stage, but just remember that a block of code can be put inside a function and then that function becomes a reusable piece of code. In which case, I can call this function as many times as I want. Example given, I've given the name of the function as f1. So at any point in time, I can call f1, 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 and so on and so forth. Right? So I can call the function 10 times, and let's say this function is printing the Fibonacci series. Okay, I hope you know what is a Fibonacci series. So it is printing the Fibonacci series, and every time I'm calling the function, it is printing the output. So now the only problem here is depending on how many number of times I need this execution, which in some cases is not entirely always known, I'll not be able to do this activity manually. And that's the reason why, or I can say that is one of the reasons why the repetitive execution of anything, irrespective of whether that is a piece of code or whether that is a function which is already a reusable piece of code and so on, I can make use of a looping structure. Example given, I can create a loop. Let's say I'll just write it as loop. And then inside something, inside some braces in some other programming language or in Python, it will simply be the indentation that we have already seen. So I'll just write indentation here, IND. Inside the indentation, I'm going to write my code. Okay. A loop has three basic things. First of all, what kind of loop it is. So we are going to look into one very specific kind of loop. Actually, we can look into two kinds of loop, but one of them are extensively used when I am doing, let's say, data science. So in the industry, I have many times used it, and that is the for loop. So we are going to look into the structure, hence don't worry. The other one is the while loop. Okay, sometimes we need to use while loop because this is quite effective when it comes to the iteration with respect to some variables. So both for loop and while loop are very very effective. uh, we mostly use for loop because this is quite easy to tune when it comes to the performance optimization. So this is the mandatory part. You need to define what kind of loop you want. Then at least one single line of code should be there inside the loop. So at least one line. So you need at least one line of code. At least one line of code has to be there inside the code block, even if it is a print statement of, or even if it is an identifier. So an identifier is something like break or continue. We are going to look at the uses of break and continue quickly. So it can either be break or continue, then it can also be inserted here, right? Post which you don't need to do anything. Now the condition is until what point in time the loop is going to execute itself. That's going to be given by the condition of the loop. So I'll just write COND here. So this condition is going to control how many times the loop is going to run. Example given, I want to print Fibonacci series for 10 times. So I need to somehow define this condition over here that please stop after 10 executions. That's all I have to define. So this is also mandatory, by the way. Yes. So in loop, we seldom have things which are optional. So it is quite strict when we need to do a loop. We need to define what kind of loop we are going to do and the condition based on which we are going to do, both of which becomes, let's say, mandatory. Inside the code block, I can even write a single line of code, or I can have the identifiers otherwise known as break and continue. Okay. This single line of code may well be, as I said, a call to another function which I've already written, right? So maybe I'll write a function quickly later on because we're going to see functions as well quickly at the end of the session. Maybe we can try to combine a function and a loop, right? So that's all. I'll clear the drawings and I will close this. Let me just quickly show you a few loops. You'll be able to understand what I'm trying to tell you. So let's say I'll declare a variable. Okay, so this variable I'll just called max limit. Give me 1 minute. I'll just discharge my charger. Okay, so max limit is equal to, let's say, 10. Okay, so I've just defined a variable which is an integer. It should be an integer. Let me quickly check. Yes, so the value of max limit is equal to 10, right? So I'm going to, let's say, print hello for 10 times. So what I do for um, any let's say iterator, let's say for I in range, I'll start with 1 and I'll end to something. So my end is going to be max limit. Okay, this is how we define a for loop. Okay, and then we have to give a colon. So the structure of the for loop is we have to provide the type of loop, which in this case obviously it is a for loop, so I write for. Then I put the iteration condition. Okay, sorry, the iteration condition in this case is going to be this: for any arbitrary variable I in the range, this is the function range in this. Okay, this may well be anything else. I'm going to show you other iteration conditions as well. So it is not always the case that this is the only or the de facto standard. There can be other ways in which we can run for loops as well. Okay, but this is just one of the ways. Now, an interesting thing to note over here, the variable I, we have not declared it earlier. So we do not need to declare the iterator variable. Okay, the variable which is going to iterate inside the loop. Okay, now end the call or first line of the loop using as simple as the colon sign. All right, so that's exactly what we are doing here. So we have a for loop, an iterator variable, then we have defined a function, which is part, or this is actually an iteration condition inside or inclusive of the variable where I in the range of this, and I'm going to print, let's say, hello world. And quickly, I'm also going to show you one available option in print. Just a moment, I think Mugdha is trying to join. Let me just add her quickly. I think she is joining in. Yes, I have accepted. She is joining in. I think she is connecting to audio. Okay, fine. So what we are doing over here is this print inside the bracket. I've written hello world, and then I've given a comma and given a variable I. So this is one of the ways in which I can print values. I don't know whether you have tried this yourself earlier or not, but I have not specifically mentioned this earlier. Okay, this is something that I thought you will be trying it of your own, and that's why I have not explicitly mentioned it. Hi Mugdha. So what we are trying to do here is we are just trying to learn how a for loop works, right? So in a for loop, as you can see, we provide the type of the loop, which is for. Then we provide an iteration condition, which is I in the range 1 comma max limit. This range function is going to help us loop through each and every value, iterate through each and every value from 1 or starting from 1 and then ending with max limit. So that's what I need to mention over here clearly maybe. So in this case, 1 is the start value. So it will start with the value inclusive. Okay. And max limit is otherwise the end value. And this is also inclusive. Okay. So in the for loop, we are not going to exclude or ignore anything. We start with something, we end with something, and we include both. Right. In this case, max limit, I've already defined a variable which is equal to 10. This loop is going to run from 1 to 10. And what it is going to do, it's going to print hello world, and then maybe I'll give a small space and I'll say I. So if I run this, it is going to print hello world 10 times. Okay. Now what it has done over here is that, as you can see, this is something that has been introduced recently into Python 3. Okay, if you go by the documentation of Python, by default, by the design of Python, because it is done in C, start value and end value are always inclusive, but from Python 3 this is not the case. From some time at least it may have been introduced into Python 2 in some time. So I'll just change this to exclusive. As you can see, it has gone only up to 9. It has not gone up to 10. If you want that to be inclusive, then you need to do a +1, in which case it is going to run for 10 times. I was just specifically mentioning about this line because here I've used a technique called comma and then the variable name. We can do this kind of a thing. If we would like to print in a single line some text or something that we want to print along with the value of variable. So in this way, a for loop is executed. So this is one of the ways in which we can execute a for loop. Let's look at another way. Okay, I'm going to define a variable. Define variable. Okay, so what I'm going to do, my var 1. Okay, so this is, let's say, 1. Okay, then I'm going to do a for loop until my var is less than 11. Okay, so for no, this is not the right use case of a for loop. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that let's say I'm going to take my var1, sorry, my var1, my bad, that was a use case of a while loop. So for loop until 10 and make calculations. Okay, so for example, I have another variable my var2, which is 1. Okay, now what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to simply write for I in range 1 to my var1, and here I'm going to, sorry, here I'm going to do print. First of all, I'm going to print I am at position this. So I'm going to write the position at which I am. So this is the iterator variable. So comma I is the iterator variable. So I'm simply printing I am at position X. X is going to be anything between 1 to 10 or 1 to 9. I want 1 to 10. Let's make it +1. Right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say my var2 plus equal to 1. So this is something interesting that I wanted to show you. This is a specific kind of operation that we are doing. This is possible in any programming language. In this case, what we are essentially doing is this plus equal to sign refers to the same statement as my var2 is equal to my var2 plus 1. Okay, so this plus equal to 1 is nothing but sign, or let's say command, I can say, refers to the same output as of this statement. So every time there is a loop, I'm simply going to add one value to my var2. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And let's say finally I'm also going to print the value of, let's say, current value of my var2 is, let's say, I'm going to say comma my var2. Okay, so if I do this, as you can see, it is looping. First position is 1, then the value is 2. Why it is 2? It has started from 1, right? So it has started from 1, it has incremented the value here. That's why my var2 is 2. Then iteration 2, the value is 3. Iteration 3, value is 4. Iteration 4, value is 5. In this way, it has continued until 10. So this is a very, very common way of doing it's a loop. Okay, so these are the ways that we do things. Okay, so these are very, very simple examples of for loops. You can try out other examples. You can try out other, let's say, exercises. If you have already registered into HackerRank, I'm sure there are a lot of exercises that you can try to do from there. Okay, but please don't take it so seriously. The only use case where for loop is going to be required, and this is something which I will be sharing from time to time with all of you. It's not only important to know the code, it's also important to know why we are knowing the code. So the reason why we are knowing the code is that when we do, let's say, the data analysis kind of things, we do a lot of activities which are iterative on top of a variable. Although there are better ways of doing it, but let's say we have some kind of a data and we have some kind of a column. Okay, we have added this new column. Okay, and it needs to be an output which is based on the values which is there in the rest of the columns. And there are other efficient ways of doing it. Obviously, there are other efficient ways of doing it, but for a simpler data set, one of the ways of doing it is to use a for loop. So using a for loop, what I can do, I can simply populate this value, and I can say for iterator variable, so for I is going to be same, and the range is going to be, let's say the index of this value will be 0. The index of the first row is going to be 0, right? And let's say the last row in the table is 100. So what I'm going to say, for I in the range 0 to 101, I have to say, otherwise this row will be skipped, right? So 101 for each and every row. Let's say column number C4 is actually equal to C1 plus 2 times C2 plus 5 times C3, right? So this is just a formula, let's say, which I'm going to use to prepare the fourth column. Okay, let's say this is a very dummy kind of a use case, but if we need to do this, then for loop is going to come very handy, because at one go we are going to do the operation. The only advantage for loop has is because at any point in time, this is my execution, right? These are my execution lines. Okay, these are indented. If any of the line fails, let's say at position 5, because of something happening, this line here is failed. If this line here is failed, let's say I'll just take the eraser. Just a moment. Okay, so if let's say this line has failed, if this line over here has failed, it does not execute beyond it. Okay, so this is one minor advantage which you have. This advantage as of date is available in many libraries which we can use to do activities like this, but at a certain point in time it was not there. So to some extent you can say maybe I will never need a for loop, but yes, there are certain cases where you will need for loop. Okay, so it is really going to be essential when we are playing with the data, especially with tabular data. Also effective with, let's say, text data when we are going to look into text analytics kind of things. Also effective with unstructured data, okay, some kind of, let's say, JSON data and so on. So in this kind of cases, if we are going to play with one certain object which is part of the data, it's going to be really beneficial to use a for loop. So this is a plus side of for loop. Now every coin has two sides, so there must be a con, so there must be a negative side. The negative side is, I don't know whether any one of you are aware of this. I'm trying to write something to the best I can. Can anybody tell me what this is? This is O. Inside the bracket, I have N. Does anybody have any idea what this is?
Value of complexity.
Exactly. So this is the biggest problem when it comes to for loop. This is time and space complexity, which is always part of algorithms and, let's say, data structures. The more the number of iterations, so this range here, okay, this range here, and the operation which you are doing inside it. So this is the range and this is the operation. The range and the operation collectively is going to decide how much time, number one, and how much space you will need to execute the code. Because we are doing one operation here per iteration, if I have a value of 100 here, then my execution will go up to 100 times. This is a bad thing. Why is this a bad thing? Is because, let's say I have a data set with 100 rows. That's fine. I have a data set with, let's say, 1000 rows. That's also fine. It will execute. I have a laptop with, let's say, 16 GB of RAM. It will work. What if I have a big data set? What if I have transactions that has happened in my company for the last 1 year? This is going to be a problem. This is where for loop is going to be dead slow. It is really going to be slow, and that is the reason why this disadvantage of for loop is where the libraries like, let's say, pandas, we have already seen the pandas library, right? So pandas, and we are going to see other libraries when we do mathematics or, let's say, statistics. These libraries provide very good abstracted data structures like data frames. We have already quickly touched base into data frames, but we are going to look into other areas as well. So these abstracted data forms are going to be far more efficient than this ON Ajamela, because ON or ON square, depending on how it is being executed, don't take this too seriously right now. We are going to look into this at later stage. Okay, just to remember, this is the complexity of time and space. of this algorithm that we have created. So how much time and how much memory it is going to take to execute? Simple, right? Depending on the range, depending on the operation that you're doing, it's going to exponentially increase. I can control that using efficient memory based data structures, the functionality of which is available into latest libraries like Python, like NumPy, SciPy, and scikit-learn, and so on, which we are going to use when we are doing the exercises. But unfortunately, vanilla Python and the for loop that comes with it, no, that kind of option is not available. That's why please use this kind of looping structure in case of, let's say, data analysis very, very judiciously. If you are sure that it's the only way of doing it, then you do it. Else, try to find an alternative in a better library. Okay, especially when we put our code into production. That is not what we are doing over here, right? What we're doing is we are simply writing things, and I'm going to end of the day share the notebook with you. This is like the analysis that I'm sharing with you, but this is not what we are going to do. Ultimately, when we have learned almost a lot of things, what we are going to do, we are going to pick up an ID with Anaconda. With we usually get an ID known as Spider, and that IDE, that integrated development environment, is going to help us write code which is ready to be deployed into production. So I can take that code, put it into a server which is there in my organization, and simply put it into some kind of a scheduled task, and that a script is going to run. The code is going to run. It is going to execute every day. It is going to do whatever I've asked it to do. It's going to produce the output that I need or my clients need. This is a very critical job because this ultimately is going to be part of a pipeline. Okay, so each and every activity which I do as part of, let's say, data science is ultimately going to be part of it's a series of steps which I need to execute. And if any of those steps are not performance friendly, my analysis is late. My analysis might even break. So these are the risks that you may want to avoid, provided you are using very big data. However, if in case you are not using very big data, for loop or while loop is still going to be your first choice. Okay, you can always look into how much time it is going to take. There are ways of actually doing it. I will show you when I put this inside a function. When we look into functions, I can show you a command. I can show you a trick by means of which you can see how much time it's going to take to execute a function or a loop like this. In which case you can decide. Let's say I have a data set. I recently worked on one where I was looking at a campaign which was launched by my company, right? So my company launched a campaign, and somebody wanted to know whether the campaign was good or not. I wanted to know all the transactions or all the subscriptions about that campaign. That campaign ran only for 3 months. Every day, hardly 10 to 20 users took it. So 3 months means what? Approximately 90 days. The 90 day per day 20 users. So 90 multiplied by 20. This is the size of data I have. In that kind of a small, let's say, data set with, let's say, 1800 rows or something, at max, let's say, 2000 rows. So I don't need any efficient, let's say, data structure. I can do whatever non-efficient programming as well to do it. I was able to solve the problem without using any special or any specific, let's say, library. But if, let's say, I had to do that kind of analysis for 1 year, 3 year of data, then that would have been a problem. Then I need to use something which is far more efficient than a for loop. So for loop advantage is simple to understand. As you can see, you can clearly understand what is going on. It is very simple. It is open box. There is nothing hidden. The only disadvantage, time and space complexity, is going to come in your picture. In which case, try to use any library which is more efficient than a for loop. We are almost done with the for loop. We are going to move with the while loop. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. Fine. I'll assume there are no questions. So I'll just continue with a while loop. Okay. So now I'm going to take an example. Let's say my var3 is equal to, let's say, sorry, what am I doing? This is a comment. Define a new variable. Okay, I'm defining a new variable, which is my var3 is equal to 1. Okay, so my var3 has a value of 1 and it is an integer, right? Now what I would like to do, I would like to define a while loop. Okay, and I'm going to show how while loop is going to work. by creating the code. Okay, so rather than explaining, I'll write the code and then I'll explain. So what we are going to do, loop using while and print hello, okay, until the value of my var3 reaches 11. In each step, okay, increase the value of iterator, which in this case is my var3. Okay, why is this called an iterator? Is because in while loop you don't have to define an iterator. What I mean by that is while my var3 is less than 11, or no, it should be less than 12, right? So if I define a condition like this, as you can see, I'm simply defining the loop or the type of the loop, which in this case is while, and then I'm defining a condition which is my var less than 12. I have no iterator like I. If you go back to the for loop, I had an I statement here. In case of a while loop, I don't have an I don't have a j or anything else. I'm simply defining the type of loop, which is while, then the condition, which is my var less than 12. Simple. Now what I'm going to write, my requirement is print hello. Okay, I have written hello. I've also given the exclamation marks. Then I'm going to say my var3 is plus equal to 1. Okay, so if I do this, I can clearly see that it has executed for some number of time, although I don't know whether it has really done the job or not. So let me see what it has done. Okay, so print val of my var3, just you can use this kind of techniques to do, let's say, the debugging of your code. Okay, so I'm printing the value, but it is not typing it because it has updated the value. Okay, why it is not typing it is because now if you see, if I print the value of my var3, it has already updated. So this gives rise to a very important question or a point. Unfortunately, I missed to tell you. So let me go back. Let me quickly touch base on that. This is called scoping of variables. I'll take a pen and I'm going to quickly explain you. I had two variables here, my var1, my var2. My var1 I have used in the looping condition. Okay, and I'm consistently increasing it. What happens if I print my var1 after the loop has completed? Is that going to change? We are going to see. I don't think it is going to change, but what is going to change is my var2. My var2 is defined outside the range or outside the block of this for loop, which means this variable is otherwise known as a global variable. Anything which is defined inside this, let's say I, even the iterator variable, its scope only lies within this part of the code. And that's why this variable I here is known as a local variable. Okay, so global variable is where it is outside the scope, and hence any block of code, any function, any loop, any while statement, for loop, if else statement may be able to change the value if I have written statements like these. So because I have written statement like this, it is going to change the value. This value will not be changed because this is a temporary value. Okay, let's see if that's a correct assumption or not. Okay, so let's create a new cell here. Sorry, create a new cell, and let's print my var one. Sorry, my var one, and you see the value is still 10. So it was 10, it is still 10. It is not changed inside the scope of the loop. Why? Because it is part of the condition. Anything which is part of the code section will be the place where the variables and the values are going to be changed. Example given, if I say my var 2, the value has changed to 11. Right, so this is the essence of local and global variable, and that is exactly what is also happening over here. I already ran the loop once. My var3 is incremented until 12. Now my var3 is already 12, and that is the reason why if I execute this loop any more time, it's not going to execute. Even the value is not going to change. So I'm going to define the value once more. I'm going to set it back to 1, and then I'm going to run the loop, and in this case I can see that it has done what I had asked it to do. Right, it has done exactly what I had asked it to do. Now comes the advantages or the disadvantages, but before I do that, I'm going to show you where. Okay, we have 10 minutes more, so I'm just going to be a bit quick. Now the advantage or the disadvantage is something, it'll take only 2 minutes, but what I would like to show here is you can also use a boolean value inside a while loop. Okay, let's a variable to store the status of any activity. Let's say I'm doing some activity. Let's say this training, right? I'm doing a session. So I'm going to write a variable which is a Boolean variable, which is status. So if you look at the type of this variable, this is a Boolean variable. Okay, if you print status, it is going to give you true. Okay, if you do an int of status, it is going to give you 1. Why? Because it is true. If I change this value to false and then I look at type, it is still a Boolean. The status is false. The integer is now 0. Okay, so in Python, a Boolean is represented in text either as true and false, or it is represented in numbers as 1 and 0. Right now, I want to use this variable, okay, to do some kind of, let's say, calculations. Okay, so while, okay, I'm simply going to write status. Okay, let's see what is going to happen. Print I have an active class. Okay, if I execute this, the code has executed because I've got a number, but I have not got any output. The reason being the value of status is false. And if I simply write while status, it is going to check whether this variable is a Boolean or not. The answer is yes. If the value is true, it is going to go inside the loop. If the value is false, it is not going to go inside the loop. It's a very, very important, it's a structure of writing while loop when it comes to doing the analysis. Okay, this is very, very efficient, or I would not say efficient. That's one of the problems with while loop as well, but it's going to be efficient until the data is of a certain size, and then it is really going to be helpful to check the conditions within the data set, whether they exist or not. So when we do more of, let's say, data analysis by taking case studies, then we are going to see what is the advantage of using while loop, right? But as of now, I just wanted to show you in that way I should be able to use it. Now I have changed the value to true. If I'm going to run this code, it is going to run forever. My code is going to hang. My notebook is going to go inside an infinite loop. Why is that the case? Is because status will always be true inside the loop. I'm not changing the value, and that's why it will never be false, and hence the loop is going to execute. That's why I'm not going to execute this. Okay, if you want to give it a try, I'm going to share the notebook with you. You can give it a try on your own laptop. Okay, but this is going to go inside an infinite loop. Okay, because every time it is going to check the value of status and it's going to find that it is false. How can we correct this? Okay, so what I can do, I can take a dummy variable. Okay, these are kind of things that you are going to use. Okay, so let's say I have a variable myvar4 and that is equal to 10. Okay, so myvar is now equal to 10, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come inside here and I'm going to say myvar plus equal to 1. Okay, now I'm going to say if myvar 4, sorry, this was myvar 4, this should not be myvar. If myvar 4 is equal to, I don't know, 10, okay, then status is equal to false. Now if I run this, the code is actually running for infinite times. I don't know why. Maybe I have done some kind of a mistake. Okay, so it is actually running for infinite number of times. Okay, yes, of course, yes, it is going to run infinite number of times because I've done a mistake. Okay, because I've done a mistake, that's why. So what I need to do, if my var is equal to 10, this will not work, right? So let me just do 1 here and this should work. Yes, now it is not going to go in an infinite loop because I have put a condition over here. I am increasing the value of my var. Then I'm checking if my var is equal to 10, put the status into false. And the moment the status is false, this while loop says, okay, status value is false. I'm not going to go inside. So the number of times this is going to be printed is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Why? Because it's checking to be equal to, right? It has already started from 1. It has go until 10, right? So 1 until 10 is 9 value. That's why this is the case. So these are two simple examples of while loop. You should not be stopping there. Go ahead, try and find out questions on the internet. Try to solve them as many examples as possible. There are two things I wanted to tell you about while loop before we close, and a very important thing which I would like you to give it a try. Let me know on our group whether you are facing any problems. Example given. The first thing that I will tell you is this. This condition over here, I have always used a single condition. Okay, there is always one condition that I have used. It is quite possible that you can have even I don't know, 7 conditions. Can you try to write a while loop with some conditions? Take some dummy examples. Try to write a while loop which is going to have 3 conditions or 4 conditions. It is still going to work. The hint that I'm going to give you, it is the same way in which we wrote multiple conditions in if else statement. Use brackets and then use operators or comparison operators, they are called, like and or. So using those or using the combination of brackets and or kind of, let's say, operators, you will be able to do that. That applies for any loop. It applies for loop as well. The second thing I wanted to tell you, let me clear all the drawings. While loop also has the same problem. This execution is actually dependent on space and time complexity, right? Okay, this is not ON, by the way. This, what I have written over here, is actually wrong. We are going to see at a later stage when we look into data structures and algorithms quickly. We are just going to touch base for a certain period of time. We are not going to look into binary tree and depth first search and breadth first search and so on and so forth, because that's not really required in the context of, let's say, data science. But we have to know this. We have to know what is space and time complexity so that we can write optimized pieces of code, because our ultimate goal is that my software will go into production. So I need to write code which is really efficient in nature, and that's why I need to know how to optimize it, right? So although this is not ON, and I will later explain why it is not, this is the biggest con again when it comes to while loop. So this is the biggest, let's say, disadvantage when it comes to while loop. Again, reason is very simple. If you have data until a certain point in time which your hardware can handle, all fine. If your hardware is not able to handle, if your hardware is not able to handle that kind of data, then unfortunately you should not be using while loop. Okay, you should make a calculation very judiciously. How much rows I have, how much data I have. If you think you have much data, if you have last 6 months of data, 1 year of data with thousands and thousands and thousands of rows, maybe a million rows, please don't use a while loop until you are sure what you are doing. If you are sure, if you know the time and space complexity is less, you have a very, very powerful kind of system, okay, go ahead. You have a dedicated system, maybe there is still a risk factor, but you can still go ahead. But I would like to suggest you, please don't use it. Use something else. We are going to look at them. They are called lambda functions. They are called iterators, otherwise known as iter tools. You can look into Google what iter tool is. You can look into Google what the dynamic functions or how dynamic functions are created using lambda functions. But we are going to look into it when we look into functions. Okay, we don't have time as of now. We are going to close within another 1.5 minute or so. So that's the first advantage. Second, the disadvantage here. Sorry, the advantage here is even more than for loop. While loop is far more readable. So if you see, the one of the main plus points of while loop is that even for loop had some lines of code, at least in the conditional statements, and people get confused where my iterative variable and its scope is going to end and so on and so forth, right? But in this case, that's not the case. It is really very simple, right? We have less than a minute left, friends, so I'm going to stop here. I think we can close the session now. I'll send you the video recording, and you can let me know if you have any queries.
Bhavik, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
In the
I think
while
they are
loop,
gone.
okay,
Go ahead.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
So maybe if time, I'll let you know afterwards.
Okay. Okay. I think
I
that's
think
all.
we'll get disconnected.
If yeah, so if anyone has any queries, please let me know. Yeah. I think we'll have to close the session.
Thanks, Bhavik.
I see Mugdha is joining back, but there is no point. So we will have to close the session now. Thanks all. I'll close the session. I'll send you the